Welcome back, I'm Captain Xavier, and today we're finally going to be doing the video where I kind of show how all of these castles can interconnect. The last whole bunch of videos that I've done for by the book have been of these old castles and the expansion sets for these castles, and now you're going to see how all of that worked and some of the stuff that I was blathering about in the previous videos. So let's see how these work. Now, there are a grand total of 9 elements, I believe. I've built 2 of this wall section because it is the simplest and I just needed it to be able to do multiple things that I wanted to, so I've kind of inflated the numbers there. But there are 9 individual, or different, unique ones. But for all of this, I've got a total of 10 elements, and you can combine any of them, or any combination of them, any way you want. And I don't know how many of you are students of discrete math, like myself, the study of combination and permutations, but that comes out to there being millions of ways to combine all of these together. Some of them don't make any sense, and some of them are just, you know, the same thing but opposite. But there are many, 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 many ways that you could combine all of these, which is what makes this whole line so much fun to play with. So we're going to go over some very simple ones, and then I'm going to show you a whole bunch of different combinations that I really like, and you guys can discuss what kind of combinations you thought were the best. So, basically you open it up in the back, and then you can take one of the extensions and lock it in, and now you have a larger castle. And since 2 of the expansions then came with siege engines, you then had what you needed to be able to attack the castles, which just makes it that much easier to actually play with them as if they were a toy instead of building them as a model and putting them on a shelf. And you can connect them up in whatever ways you want. Now they've got a blacksmith shop and an armory and a big triangle-shaped castle, which is, I think, pretty cool. Now, I mentioned in the earlier videos that the hinged ones were necessary, and what I meant by that is if you want to be able to create a solid castle wall when you expand it, you have to have at least one of the hinged sections. Because if you just have the straight ones, they don't connect back up in the back in any way. So you can have them, and you could then have it open up and, you know, whatever you want. But if you wanted the castle to be able to close in the back, you have to have one of the hinged ones, which is why I built an extra one, because we have 3 castles, and if I wanted to do 3 expanded castles, I would need 3 of the extensions. Another reason why the Black Falcon's fortress is considered so elegant and is particularly interesting for this kind of design is that it not only opened up in the back and could be expanded like the other castles, it also had pins on the sides, which allow you to connect to the outside of it and connect it up like a keep. So now you have the Black Falcon's castle in the back as if it were the main keep of the castle, and then a curtain wall going around it. And quite frankly, that just looks really, really cool. And that is why I made the modification to the King's Mountain Fortress that I did that allows it to be used in the same way. You can now connect to either side of it and use the King's Mountain Fortress as a keep. And being up on a mountain makes it even more keep-like. It has the tallest section of any of them. And if you were to use one of the other castles to build a more heavily fortified structure on the top of here, raise this wall maybe, and maybe, you know, fortify more of it, it would look even more impressive than it does. But as it is, it also connects up very nicely like a keep. And you'll see how ridiculous some of these can get as far as size, but I'm going to go over some of my favorite ones real quick. Now, I've made a point of mentioning symmetry and asymmetry. I am a big fan of symmetry in my designs. You can definitely see that in my main castle. It actually was, I had to force myself to make the castle somewhat asymmetrical in order to give it a more organic feel, especially building the mountain base that it's on. Definitely required some forceful design on my part in order to not make it look like it was engineered, because it's supposed to look like it's a natural structure. And the Black Falcon's Fortress is, as I said, a beautiful balance of symmetry and asymmetry. The front part is symmetrical, and I love that. and the back isn't, and I have come to love that. And this section of expansion is also asymmetrical. You've got an 11 stud section here, you've got a 13 stud section here, and a 5 stud section here. There is nothing symmetrical about it at all. And it was designed, I believe, specifically to go in this one. For one, it came with the Black Falcon soldiers, had the blue and white flag, and had the round tower. And this is the only one of the early castles that had the round towers instead of the square towers. And so this connects in very, very nicely into the Black Falcon's fortress and makes it even more asymmetrical, but somehow makes it that much more beautiful because of it, in my opinion. The design is just very organic and very reminiscent of many of the castles that you see in Europe that are not purely symmetrical. There are some that are, but most of them aren't because you had to build them to the terrain. And this is the one that I really like. We'll see if we can get all of it in frame. Now we have a truly impressive structure. It's got towers in all the corners, front and back. It's got drawbridge in the back, drawbridge in the front, blacksmith shop, armory, lots of room on the inside. This is something that you could definitely lay siege to. The downside is I haven't used any of the expansions that came with siege engines in this particular one, so you might not have any siege engines. But I'm sure they'd be out there somewhere. This build, this particular setup, is only possible because I redesigned the Knight's Tower to, or the Knight's Castle, to hyperextend past the front wall. You cannot connect it into the King's Castle unless you do that. Which is why that is one of the first alterations that I made, was I knew I wasn't going to be able to. I'm now going to do a whole bunch of various combinations and permutations just to give you some idea of how many different ways you can combine these. So look forward to that. Now I could quite literally go on like this for hours. Well, days, weeks, months, probably even years. Because like I said, there are literally millions of ways to combine all of these parts. Some of those combinations aren't useful, aren't interesting, or aren't really all that unique, a matter of switching the blacksmith shop and the armor shop. But there are millions of ways, and definitely hundreds of thousands of ways to do it really interesting with full different castles, and you can do multiple ones at once, actually. That's one of the really neat things, is you can have several complete castles with expansions. So I'm going to take a couple of looks at some of them. So here we three castles that I could do, well, 4 if you count the King's Mountain Fortress all by itself in the corner. But we have the King's Castle with the blacksmith shop and the armor shop and one wall hinged section. We have the Knight's Castle with just the wall section, making a nice little outpost. And we have the Black Falcon's Fortress with its double hinged section. And that's probably my favorite combination of ways that I would set up 3 different castles plus the Black Monarchs, or the King's Mountain Fortress, all off on its onesie. So let me know which of these combinations you liked the most down in the comments section. I definitely have my opinions on which ones I really like. I definitely like the King's Castle combined with the Knight's Castle and the 2 shops. And I definitely like the Oh, the Black Falcon Castle here also has the inn in it, and I definitely like that combination. So let me know what you think. Let me know what you'd like to see in future episodes, and thank you for watching.